Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. So as I said in our intro, we have a very cool guest here today. Someone that I feel that can really speak to what's it like to be a real creator in the public eye, someone who has created incredible things for themselves, who's also been a part of helping other people who, quite significant within the entertainment industry create things, and someone who's got a super cool life story with lots of ups and, some challenging downs. So for me, this is a story about persistence, someone who's resilient, someone who's accountable to themselves, and someone who's got like great vision for their future. So with that, Denaun, welcome to the show.
Thank you for that illustrious, incredible intro. I actually don't talk that good about myself, so I like that. Thank you.
Well, listen, if you need any help with a promotional tour, I am available.
Listen, man, I'm already doing numbers in my head.
Right on. Okay. So, man, a strike point I want to hit right off the bat is when Patrick was doing some prep work with you, he said, hey, what have you been working on since COVID hit? And your answer was myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tell us about that.
I'm like a lot of people what a lot of people don't realize is this pandemic has forced everybody to look. They got in their house. This is how I feel. They got inside their house and they looked around and it was nobody there, right? On the other side, or the person that was on the other side of the bed they didn't like, or the person in the mirror they didn't like. So outside of the creative part, I just literally just took the opportunity because I've been running around since I was 22, 23 years old. I've been in the industry that long for 20 years, and I've been in front of cameras and doing what I've been doing in music and all of that since I was 19. I never really had that much time to myself. I never really had it. I always had people around. Then this was like you couldn't. I always had somewhat of a assistance where it came to people being in, when I lived in a place, I had to have somebody helping me and all of that because I was in and out all the time. And it's the first time I ever stayed somewhere longer than a month. Longer than a month.
Wow.
And this is the longest I've ever stayed in a house that I've owned. I've ever sat in it. So I started working on me. I was just like, that was the first step, You like things, you don't like things. You know what I mean? So,
yeah. So question for you. You said, like people get in their house and they realize things. They realize their house is empty, or they realize they don't like a person across the bed for them, or they don't like the person in the mirror. Mm-hmm. So which one was it for you?
I realized I was alone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I realized how alone. Well, let me say that in a way where it's like, because I don't feel like we ever are. I feel like whatever deity you believe in, but I feel like God is always there. But I was, physically, I'm like, wow, I didn't do a lot of work to the personal space. It was like,
yeah.
So I looked at it and I was like, okay, this is like different because and that was the first thing I noticed. But then it was a lot of trauma, man. Like lost friends, lost lives, lost opportunities, and I realized how much of an introvert I really am and how much I like being by myself because I like myself. I like being. I didn't know how much I'd enjoy it, but I picked up a lot of different skills, but I was, man, I just started looking inside. I was that first couple months, I was like having panic attacks and anxiety attacks because I do deal with that anxiety really bad, and I had to go. Thank God they had like a virtual therapy. So I started doing that. And that was like the beginning of the road, like, which I always went to therapy, but like, man, that was different because, you sitting there and I'm panicking. I'm like, I don't want to get sick. I got a heart condition. I got AFib. So I got to be careful anyway. And so I'm like, okay, I can't get sick. It's not going to go well. I got a pre-existing thing in my head along with a pre-existing condition. And then you start thinking negative and in this world. And then I had to stop watching the news, stop watching certain stuff and shut myself down away from everything. And that's where it kind of started. Yeah.
So working on yourself, how successful have you been and what have you found out about yourself?
For a long time, I thought I couldn't be by myself. But then it was like, hell, that's not right, because I love it, right? So I was like, well, you was wrong there. On the first thing that I realized was I thought that some of the traumas that I had were coming from places that, like, I thought some of it was my father, me and my father's relationship. And it was like, it started transforming because I started realizing, like, okay, at first I thought, so I call myself Mr. Porter. My whole idea behind that was like, all right, look, if this don't work, one day I'm gonna walk into a place, and because I'm a grown up, they might say, "Oh, Mr. Porter, thank you for yada." So I'd be famous either way it go, right? So if it didn't work, it was like they gonna say that. So then you be with a chick, and it's like they know you, and it's like really they're just saying what they would normally say, right? So that was my first thing, and then I was like, it was like an ode to my father, because he kind of stopped doing what he did to raise his family, and I'm his first biological son. I have an older brother, but he ended up moving back down south. But I was my father's first, so I actually I carried a lot of guilt. I was shot at 14, so I was, and that went terribly. That went a whole different way, because flatlining surgery and all of that kind of stuff. So I was blaming myself for a lot of stuff, and I was holding this guilt, and I had this survival's guilt, and I thought it was for the people that didn't make it that I was around, but that wasn't true. It was a lot of me carrying a lot of, like, man, I don't want to let my dad down. I hope that he feels like that he could live vicariously through some of the things that I was able to do, and I hope he was proud. And then I was all of these things, and I was carrying a lot of it. And I didn't know that, And then, shoot, I had some things that I realized with my mom, like, I was sheltered a lot. So I was scared of the world, in a sense, when it came to certain stuff. I could be fearless, but then not. I think I was doing things because I wanted camaraderie. So I would hang around the wrong people because my older brother did leave, and that was something that I had to face. Like, it was like, it actually hurt me. He left and he went back down south, and that actually hurt, because I was like, was it me? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you just don't know. And when you're that young, you don't talk about it as a family. It just happened. Right. And so I just started, that was the first thing I started realizing, that some of the traumas I had them confused. I thought it was from other things. I thought my survival remorse was from me making it and my friends didn't, but it wasn't. It was like, sometimes I felt like, dang, did I stop my dad's dreams because I was born? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you hold that stuff. So
tell us about your dad and his dreams.
My father is a singer, an incredible singer, and he's a gospel singer. And he sang with the original Five Blind Boys of Alabama. And then he and my uncles had a group called the Christianaires, and they were popular, and he was just this amazing singer. He also won. My father, actually, I just started going through this video because I'm working on an album called Reflection. And my father won. He was one of the first people. He was the first person to sing Hello Detroit in the Detroit parade, like, the parades, the Michigan parade. So he sang it, and we was like on TV and all that stuff. And I got the video, and I didn't even remember myself from being shot. I don't remember being a kid. So that was something else that I got uncovered. I don't remember anything. So I didn't see myself, because I don't have a lot of pictures of me as a kid. And I saw this video of myself, and I cried for like 2 days. I was like in tears. Wow. Just because, this kid, I'm looking at him, and I'm like, this is me, but it don't feel like me, but I know that it's me.
Yeah. So your father had to give up that creative lifestyle to be able to work to raise a family. Is that right?
That's the thing. He didn't have to, but he did, which was an honorable thing. But I also looked at it like I made it felt guilty for doing what I was doing. You know what I mean? Because he did. And it's like, I know how happy it makes me. I'm sure it made him just as happy. And he could have, we don't know. When you're younger, like when he was coming up, that was probably the best thing to do. But nowadays, people do both.
Yeah, totally. It was just a different time.
It's a different time,
Like, coming up, before you became like able to like really focus in creating and being in that space with music,
Mm-hmm.
Tell us some of the defining moments of you growing up, defining relationships, defining things that happened. What really stands out to you that led you down the path of music?
Well, I used to watch him. Man, he's come in with their suits and and hangers, and they would walk in and just, walk into the church, and like the way people would react to him and stuff. That was always, it scared me because I admired him for it, because I was like, man, how he do that? I'm scared of people.
Yeah.
I don't really like people all that much,
Mm-hmm.
So when I would see it, for me to be doing it and standing in front of 80,000 people, it was like the thing that I didn't like, I ended up doing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think I was good. Man, they sing. They are singers. Like he showed me stuff today. Like he just put me up on, I forget the guy's name, where Al Green got his style from. And I watched this dude for like 2 days, just old videos of this guy. And I was like, my dad put me up on him. And I was like, man, how do y'all do this? Like, I'm not that good of a performer when it comes to that. Like, I'm not this. I'm like, so those defining moments to me, they kind of made me today. Those things, like I watched him talk to a crowd, and like he knew everybody, but didn't know all of those people. They knew him, but he didn't know all them people.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like the first defining thing. And I think after that would be, man, getting shot was it messed me up.
Mm-hmm.
Because even today, like I battle a fight with the thoughts of my mortality.
Mm-hmm.
I'm already dealing with that as a black man anyway, what you see what's going on, which has been going on. It's just crazy that it hasn't changed much.
Did you want to get into that at all?
Into
getting shot?
Oh yeah, I mean, what happened was I was like hanging around the wrong crowd of people, like just looking for camaraderie amongst brothers and just trying to be friends with people and stuff, and like doing stupid stuff to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day, this guy, like he was always playing with guns. He was always messing with guns, like, and ironically, this is the second time. I remember we was in a stolen car one time. I can say this now, he won't get in trouble. But he was like, he was in a stolen car, and I remember he had a double barrel.
Mm-hmm.
He driving the car, my friend driving the car, he turns around and points it in my face. And I'm like, I move it. And he moves past my friend's head, and it goes off. Shoots the axle in the car. Smoke in the whole car. And we got stolen stuff in the car. We had broken into a house, all that kind of shit. And we pull over, and I was like, man, was he trying to shoot me? Like, you know what I mean? Because it's loaded. It's a double, it's loaded. It ain't nowhere. It's not like a revolver.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's bullets in this thing. It's 2 slugs in it. Then the second time he was at my house. He was at my house, and he pulled up in a stolen car again, because that's what we used to do. And he pointed it at me again. And I'm like, yo, at this point, I'm mad. Like, why you always fucking playing with guns? And pushed his hand down. Boom, gun goes off. And I was like, it just never, it was always, was it intentional? Was it, you know what I'm saying? Like, so, but I had to get past that. At that point, I detached myself completely from everything and everybody at that moment, because I walked around, they sent me home. I had a bullet in my leg, and they sent me home, which was just a result of, as I grow older, I know it's just a result of a typical black family. This kid got shot, sent him home. People live with bullets in them all the time. This whole week, the bullet is moving through my leg, tearing up arteries, and across the artery with a vein. And I woke up one day, and I was like, super fever, and it was back of my leg. It was hurting. The bullet had moved to the back of my leg, but it had crossed this artery in this vein. And I tell this story a bit on this song called Letter to Sydney. I put it out a year ago. And what happened was, nobody wanted to do this surgery. This one doctor, which I just kind of found him a year ago, and I haven't spoke to him yet, but I want to let him know that he didn't just save some kid and I went off and did the same shit. He did the surgery. The reason that nobody wanted to do the surgery, because they had to take the artery from my right, they had to take a vein from my right leg, which was a part of my productive system. And they had to take whatever vein that was and mess with me later on in life to be able to have kids. And nobody wanted to do it, I think, because of that. And he said, I can do it. And he did it, and he saved my life. And they replaced the main artery to my heart. But in that surgery, they lost me like 3 times.
Wow, man.
And that was like the one of the defining moments, not because it happened and I felt like I changed into another person. I felt like I was born when I woke up from that surgery. I don't remember anything before that, really.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any recollection of a lot of stuff. I had these memories, they pop around, but they don't always feel like mine.
Mm-hmm.
So I had this belief about people being born and some people walking into experiences. If this body had died, what would that have done to my family? Something great is supposed to happen with somebody else in my family later on and don't have anything to do with me. But if that had happened, then it would have stopped that from happening. These things happen, I believe, but that's just my belief. But that was a defining moment. And I let my dad down and my mom, and I was like, I'm never going to do that again. Never going to let them down. Because that was the first time I saw my father cry.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know men did that. I mean, I would. I'm like a boy at the time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But my dad, when I saw that and the disappointment, I was like, all right, I'm going to make him proud. And I didn't do what I did just for him. I obviously love what I do. But it meant everything to me to dedicate and name myself. Like when we picked names, I picked Mr. Porter. So there we go. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But that was a defining moment. And probably 2 years after that, I had already knew Proof.
Mm-hmm.
But then 2 years after that, I met Eminem.
Okay. So before we get to that next chapter
Mm-hmm.
with Eminem and all the work there, I want to focus on something modern time.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd mentioned that anxiety is something that you live with. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And man, something that stands out to me for just speaking to you for a few minutes, because just for our audience to know, like we've never spoken before. We're connected by our mutual friend, Jay Reason. You know, shout out to Jay.
Shout out,
man.
Jay.
All right. So listen, I'm just some guy you're talking to across, a line here.
Yeah.
And right off the bat, you're being super open, super vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're talking in a way that I think is important for people and men to be able to talk about, like anxiety, fear, like fear about mortality, like all these things. Have you ever always been open like this, or is this something as a result of like the kind of, just like coming to this place throughout your life?
No, I wasn't. I was always hiding behind everything. I was hiding behind my group. I was hiding behind the shadows of whatever M was doing. I was hiding behind all of that. Like, let them be in front. Because remember, I had people phobia young.
Mm-hmm.
So it was natural for me to be in the back. But I did that to a point where it was like, your life is like, this is the one you got. We don't know. Nobody knows what happens after this. God made it to where when you leave, you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
When you get here, you don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
But you were definitely something before it. We don't know what. So for what I can tell, this is what I got. And at some point, once you start healing, and enough people tell you that you can't feel. Like I'm always being told we can't cry. We told we can't express ourselves. There's no place for men to express themselves without being canceled.
Mm-hmm.
We can't, we got to watch everything.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's because some of the people before us didn't do it right. Maybe they didn't treat women right. Maybe they didn't treat situations right. But that's not everybody. But we got to a point where it's like, be this, be this, be this. But then they tell us to be something else. I'm tired of people telling me what to be. I don't want anybody to tell me what to be. You either accept me for the truth that I am and you don't like me and you can say, well, whatever you want to say. And I had to get to a point where it's like, I don't care about what people think because that hurts me to not express myself.
Yeah.
And the more interviews I listen to, like Jamie Foxx, Will Smith, Mike Tyson, D.L. Hughley, Dick Gregory, and now so many more people like Farrakhan. All of these people are influential to me, right? So when I look at them, they comfortable in their skin. I want that comfortability for myself. And the only way I'm gonna get that is like saying the stuff that I wouldn't normally say. Most people would say I'm open, but that's because I actually let them in. That's only a handful of people.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't know nothing about me. You know what I mean? So, and that's kind of like, I like it like that. I like it like that. I'd rather have it that way because it's safer. But it's just open, man. Like, we don't have outlets. And if I can be a person that's a sounding board and I can influence a kid that's going to have a platform even bigger, be yourself. It's okay to be yourself. We don't have to be these things that we being sold and shoveled. You know, it's false. It's a false narrative that you got to be something else to be seen or be heard. I don't have to wear the biggest chain. I don't have to say, I don't have to sleep with every chick I meet. I don't have to talk about all of that. I don't have to talk about money. I don't have to do all of that. I can be me, and that's enough.
Mm-hmm.
We are enough. You're enough who you are. You don't have to tell this crazy, crazy story for it to be enough. You're born to be enough. We just been told that we weren't. And we also are told if you do say too much, or if you don't say this, or if you don't do this, then you're wrong. How is it wrong for me to say I'm accountable for the shit that I did? I'm accountable for it. I did it. Nobody did it to me.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing happened to me. Things happen and I react. That's on me. So how is that wrong for me to say, well, okay, I get it. But then if I say, let me draw this line and this boundary, that's when people have a problem. Because they draw boundaries and lines. They'll tell you, well, that's too TMI. It's not. It happened to me. It happened in my life. I experienced it. So how is it too much? Men don't have an outlet, and that's why we act out with our emotions, and that's why some of us are, we trapped. It's like taking a lion and putting him in a public school. A lion. And you put him in a school, he gonna run through there and he gonna scare everybody. But really he's scared because you took him out of his environment and put him in a place and told him to act a certain kind of way. Right? Then they killed a lion.
Well, man, I just want to say, for a guy that I'm just hearing speak basically for the first time outside of interviews or TV or anything, I appreciate your vulnerability. I think being comfortable in your own skin, truly comfortable in your own skin is for me, it's been a lifelong, just brutal journey to get real comfortable with who I am. But I'll say the closer I get to it, the freer I feel.
It take a long time.
Mm-hmm.
It take a long time. I ain't even all the way there because I'm just now cracking the top of the iceberg to me.
Yeah.
So.
All right. You ready to go back in time? Well,
let's do it.
All right, man. So let's talk about, you shift gears in your life and you start getting in that creative space and you start, you meet Proof. A couple of years later, you meet Eminem. So let's talk about your creative journey and how that started and kind of just the things that really stand out for you in that space.
I think the best thing that could happen for me was Proof told me the truth. He told me when I wasn't good. He told me this is cool, but the drums are too loud. This is cool, but the drums is whack. I jumped into the game producing a full album. I produced Infinite, the whole thing. Made all of the beats, and then Proof came in, and he had to fix some of the drums because I had a Emax. I had an Emax. I didn't even have a drum machine at the time, and I didn't even have a sequencer. So all of that stuff, I did it without a sequencer. It was I had to do it with my thumbs. So I had to play the sample, then play the drums. So the way they was hearing was me actually sequencing it myself on an Akai SO1. And if anybody, it's such an old machine, you probably can't even find one. And I did the whole Infinite album on that. So I always had this offbeat kind of feel to my drums and stuff like that. But that was Proof told me the truth. That was the best thing that happened because he didn't let me think that I was something that I wasn't, and he gave me room to grow.
So how did you even get into producing? Where was the start of that for you?
I was in a group called Crazy Tunes with my best friend Rich and 3. His name is 3. And 3 was the dude that got us all into rap. And when we went to the studio, he kind of took these loops and made a beat. And I was like, you can rap and make beats? And then Proof did it. And then I met this guy named IQ, who was actually the reason I met Eminem. IQ heard me and thought that I was dope. But everybody was everybody thought IQ was dope. But for him to think that I was dope out of all these people, I was like, okay, I must have something. And I saw him make beats, and when he made beats and did it and rapped over his songs, I was like, I want to do that. And then I saw Benita Applebum. I think it was I Left My Wallet in El Segundo, then Benita Applebum. I was already up on NWA and things like that, but I wasn't into it as much because I lived in that environment. So I was like, man, I don't want to really hear that. I gravitated more towards Tribe Called Quest, Souls of Mischief, things like that. And then I started just producing. I thought producing was making beats was just fun. I found something that loved me back in that moment. It was instant gratification. I was super excited every time I did one thing. You know, when you get something that you can appreciate in that moment and it happens, like hanging up a picture and it's straight without having to use a leveler, and you pat yourself on the back. That's instant gratification. Is something I always tell somebody, do something with your hands. If you feel bad, do something with your hands. Like fix something, pump up a tire, do something that you know, something like that. It's instant gratification. I found something that loved me back.
Man, I love what you just said. Everything you just said there was super powerful, but especially that, like, I found something that loved me back.
Yeah.
Because, like, professionally, personally, like, a lot of people put a ton of energy and time into things that will never love them back.
Never.
Or that don't embrace them or don't give results.
Yeah.
But when you find that thing, it's life-changing. So you found that in producing.
I found it in producing, but I also found it in just, once I realized I could like put songs together, I didn't realize that until years later, almost only 5 years ago. That's super new for me because I was in a group. So I knew how to start the beat and do the song, but I didn't know that was what I was doing. Like, I mean, I was producing. I knew how to produce. I could take any artist and make them sound incredible. But I didn't know at that time it was like I was making songs for them. Right? I was starting a mode and emotion and a mood and gave them a mood and it pushed them. I just wanted every artist to feel like the song that I did for them was one of their favorites. I didn't never care about people and the number one record. That never was my thing. So that's not what my career represents. A lot of producers, they chase that record, and I just want the artist to feel like when they get in their car and they say one of them songs like, yo, this was my shit. Yeah. That's really what I like.
All right, so let's go over to meeting Eminem. So at what stage of all of your careers were you at?
What you mean? Say it again. What stage
so,
of
like,
all the careers?
Yeah, like when you met Eminem, where were all of you from your careers? Like, you'd all kind of, you're all still pretty junior in what you're doing, like early days, right?
Yeah, we was babies.
Yeah.
He was like, when I met him, he had this song called Backstabber, so he played it, and I was like, yo, it's dope, but I can't really understand what you're saying. Like, if we slowed it down, it'll be, and then we did another version of that song was Backstabber too. And then we did Infinite. So it was like people actually heard him because he was a Tretch fan. So it was boop, 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 zip, 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 zip. And I was too, because I thought, but I was like, that's Tretch. But you are saying a whole bunch. It's loaded. It was like really loaded what he was saying, because when he was rapping fast, I still could understand. I was listening to it like, wait a minute, you're not just rapping fast, because at the time people would do it just to do it.
Right.
And it was very rare for people to be able to do it like Tretch. Like, he was saying stuff while he was doing it. Just like Twister. Twister don't just rap fast, or Buster. Like, it's a skill. Tech 9. It's a skill. And M was able to do it, and I was like, yo, if you slowed it down and people heard you. And the music that I gave him at the time was like really mood. It was like something that, the things that you would hear today, a lot of jazz pianos, a lot of those things. But those are the only records that I had. Soulful records. I didn't have rock records in the house. I had, so I was making beats with what I had. So he was real novice at it, and I was too. So he got better and I got better. And then me and my dad was like, I was getting older and we was clashing, and he was like, well, look, I said, I don't have a place to stay. And he was like, well, look, I'm going to let you take the room and make beats in the room, and I'll sleep on the couch. And I thought that was the craziest thing ever. And I was like, I get to get better, and he got better. And I'm pretty sure I was a headache because I was younger than him, so I didn't even know how to keep a job. You know what I'm saying? So, but then we started working at this place, and he took that job serious. Like, it was like, I saw how serious he took things.
What was the job?
We worked at this place called Gilbert's Lodge. It was like we was cooks. Short order cooks. But he was
he took the job seriously.
Oh yeah, he took it serious. He took everything serious. Yeah, he was the man at that shit. Like, he was way faster than I was on the grill. But we started there, and that's when I had that job, and I was like, I didn't have a lot of proof in him was like big brothers, like, so, you know what I mean? And I was able to learn a lot of things that I wasn't able to learn being with my family and up under my father, because we was clashing so much that sometimes you got to leave home to like learn those lessons. So I learned how to keep a job at that point. I learned how to, I remember I got my first car. It was a blue Corsica, and it was the coolest car to me because I was like, this looked like some space shit. It was like circle. It wasn't that round edge that if you bust your head on it playing football in the street. And I remember I got the car and he said, well, now you got to come to work and pay for it. Because I was always late. And I was like, yeah, he hating on me, but he was right because I had to pay for it.
I love it, man. Yeah. All right. So you start working together, you're living together, you're literally actually working a job together.
Yeah.
So tell me about when you guys' world starts to change in terms of like real deal success. What was that like?
That was, it was difficult for me in the beginning because I was so used to being with him all the time. Yeah. And when he left and went to California or whatever and all of the stuff was happening, I was still in Michigan. Mm. So I was like, all right, I'm going to get a house phone. So I got a house phone in the basement. I moved back with my parents. I was a different person when I moved back. I was actually better at, being a grown-up. But I was always searching for something. But he was out there and it was like he would call or I would call him and, be able to hit him up. And he would tell me the stories and I'd be like, man. And the one thing that I remember that I always wanted to do when he was telling me that stuff was I figured everybody was grabbing at him. And at that time, it was like, well, look, I'm going to be there. I'm going to get there. And then I'm going to see you out there. It was never like, yo, bring me out. Because I'm pretty sure that was already happening. And I remember the phone got cut off because I couldn't afford to keep it on. And then we didn't talk for a little bit. But the girlfriend I had at the time, she actually bought me my first drum machine. So I was like, now I'm like, all right, I'm about to turn all the way up on the beats. And so when he did come home, he would play me stuff that he was working on with Dre. And I just couldn't believe he was working with Dre. I was like, man, what? This is crazy. But then I was like, but yo, Dre working with you, that's a totally different sound for Dre. So at this time, I'm learning too. So I was able to hear stuff before everybody else was able to hear it. So I was already influenced a little bit sonically.
Yeah.
So sonically I was trying to, but not thinking to myself, not knowing how that even happened. Dre heard the music that I was making for him to even make him, you know what I mean? So I was like, and when I first met Dre, the first thing he said to me, I was scared to say something to him. And I forgot who introduced me to, I think it was my man, Mark LaBelle, I think. Mark LaBelle, or he was like, yo, Denaun did Just Don't Give a Fuck. He did Low Down Dirty. He was like, yo, that's my shit. Like, you're the reason we here. And I was like, oh, shit. I never thought of it like that.
Yeah, man. So, like, you influenced him as he influenced you. So he influenced you influenced him. Yeah. Then you heard all the stuff that he was working with Eminem in California. He came back. He ended up meeting him. But, all right, so, obviously we all know the story. Eminem blows up, all of that kind of stuff. Tell me about, like, going along that journey, but also like your journey, man. Because like, this isn't about Eminem. This is about you and, D12 and everything you've done past that. So like, tell us about that chapter, the tide has risen, like all the boats are rising with the tide. What was going on for you as all that was happening?
Let's see. That time, like D12 for me was the outlet. It was like my way to stretch my wings. I was like trying to show and prove. I was trying to earn that same respect that I had from M producing for him. Because you got to think about it this way. This is something I never really talked about. When Dre met M, I was his producer. So I was making all the beats. When he got there, the guys that he was working with, they kind of cut me out. So I wasn't able to get off. I wasn't around. I couldn't afford to be there. And I definitely wasn't about to be like, yo, bring me out, man. Like, I'm not about to cause that kind of, like, you know what I mean? It worked the way it was supposed to work. If he thought to bring me out, he would have bought me out. But it was like, let me just keep working. I was raised like that, like just do for self, And the friendship meant more to me than anything, you know what I'm saying? Because I didn't have a lot of,
Do you mind if I just pause there for 1 second? How important that is that your friend, someone that you loved and care about, got their shot.
Yeah.
And that you could give them the space to do that. And you can respect that without being like jealous or angry or insistent. That's a huge thing, man. But that must have been hard as hell.
It was tough because like he was once Dre became the producer,
Mm-hmm.
so I was like demoted to back to where I was at, and then the guys that was there, I was bringing music up to them, but I was noticing how like some of the stuff that the guy ended up playing because it was this dude, he would play music for him, like he was a keyboard player, you know, and it was like some of the melodies that I was bringing him, and I was like, he was influenced by the stuff that I was giving him, whether he told Eminem that or not. He just was in the room with him, and I wasn't. And I learned how important it was to be in the room, but that's when I was kind of like, I kind of grew a disdain for being in the room with people. I don't really work around a lot of people. I'm always working by myself because of that. But I needed to do that because he needed that space. So it's like you got to be the friend. You still got to be the friend. And most people be like, oh, that's fucked up. You should have been near. I should have did this. Well, it ended up happening because we was with the group and we did the group, you know what I mean, once we did the group thing. But I just kept working, and I worked hard enough to where we were still moving around, and I ended up getting a situation for me and Conniver, who's one of the guys in the group. We was a group called the Brigade inside of D12. And I was like, well, fuck it, we get our own deal. And I kind of had a deal on the table. And the thing was, everybody was just gonna stop, and we was gonna all just be the group and go do it that way. But yeah, that was a tough time because like I went from being the guy, then these guys kind of cut me out, but then they was kind of taking some of the influence of the music that I was giving them to give to him, which probably never even got to him.
Yeah. And at the same time, you had to move back in with your parents.
Yeah.
You had a phone. You had a phone, but you couldn't afford the phone.
Yeah,
the phone
couldn't
that
afford
shut
the
off.
phone. Yeah.
Dude, but it sounds like what you did was you just took all that and you put your friendship with M first and thought of that relationship. At the same time, you also refunneled all your energy back into developing yourself or developing your skill, developing your sound. That's a huge thing, man, because think how many people in that same position would just be having sour grapes and kind of being like, oh, it should have been me, but you refocused.
Yeah, no, there's something I was like, because you got the only thing that I think that is like there's a toxic element to that, which was I was always trying to prove myself to them again after that.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, I did PIMP, I did Stunt 101, I do all of these singles, multiply all of these big records, and they platinum records, boom, 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 boom. Tried to work with people, the relationships would go bad. Like I was trying to do everything that I was learning, and I was always trying to prove myself to that camp, because I felt like, damn, was I not good enough? And then that get exhausting.
Did you ever prove yourself, or did you ever stop trying to prove yourself?
I just stopped looking for it to be anything other than once you got a family, they see you how they see you. You know what I mean? Like, my brother's my brother. Yeah. He could turn into Master P tomorrow. He's just going to be my brother. You know what I mean? So you kind of like got to learn the elements of how it works. It's not, and that's how you not have that disdain all the time. There's been times where it was so tough I'd be upset, but it'd be like, I always rationalize with myself because I always had to go within because that's all I had was me to go. You know what I mean? I had to go within. So that's how you kind of had to deal with it. So, and it was like there's toxic elements to it. Like, you know, you want to grow in a system, and I always just dedicated myself to that system. Yeah. And I didn't step off the island because I was like, that's where I was comfortable. I was always comfortable with my crew, you know, and I did step off because obviously I have a name outside of that, but it could have been a lot more if I was a lot more like that at that time. If I was more about me, but I was dealing with the survivor's remorse at the same time. Like, don't do too much. You don't want to act like you. It was real, you know, it was a tough thing mentally. That's why this pandemic was so good because I got to sit at home with all of those thoughts and kind of flush through them and those emotions and shit. Yeah.
So D12 happened. So tell us about that. Tell us about D12 and that the rise of that.
That was it was fun because it was your friends. It was dope because M came back and was like, yo, let's do the group thing. And so we was all back together again and everybody was doing their thing. And then, man, it was just you travel. It was college for us. So we didn't go to college. Shit. three of us only got 8th grade educations. So technically, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
at the time. So it was fun because it was your crew. And, man, there was a lot of stuff we didn't know and a lot of things that people was able to do better afterwards, because I realized that the culture will never look at D12 like, never look at it like how fun it was for us and how we thought we was making, groundbreaking things. We were overseas doing shows where a lot of people weren't.
Right, yeah.
We broke a lot of those doors, a lot of that stuff open. Like, we broke the depths of it. That's where we went. We didn't even do it over here. And there was a lot of things that we did that like were monumental, but they won't ever be talked about. And I don't know, that kind of sucks. That part sucks. But then I also look at the music and I'm like, man, I would have did a lot of stuff different if I was as knowledgeable as I am now.
Yeah.
Or even as I was during the second album. During the second album, I was growing into me. So production-wise, I was growing, because, I mean, at this point, I got hit records. I know exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I was still trying to prove myself even to the group, like, yo, let me kind of take this like Dre would do and produce the joint. Like, but it just wasn't that. It just never happened. So I was just like, it was always a back and forth struggle for me. And this is something I never really opened up about, but like I say, I don't give a fuck no more, because you can't fault me for my experience. My experience was not always the best, but I'm also very thankful. Like, just because I'm thankful don't mean that I'm blind. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of crazy the way people's like, that's the sad part. People would be like, how could you feel like you're fans do that all the time. How you're in such a great space. How can you say that, yada, yada? Okay, well, me being in that space don't make cops look at me no different and they'll shoot me in the face. What world do you live in where you think that the person that you are actually makes it different for how people actually treat you?
Yeah, man. Totally.
And so, yeah, it was tough. It was fun, but it was a learning experience. But if I had known what I know now, man, I would have did some things that was different, like some of the content, I had so many other ideas. I had some great ideas and I kept them to myself, and I wasn't vocal about them because I didn't feel comfortable being vocal at the time. I didn't feel like, it was like, this ain't my ship. Like, I'm just, a part of it. So.
Yeah. So you go from D12 and you really build up your career to where you are today. And like, you're kind of like the consummate man behind the scenes. Like, you have done some incredible, huge stuff, but people wouldn't necessarily know. So tell us how you got from D12 to where you're at now.
Well, only reason that I'm not in D12 at this point is because when Proof got killed, it was over for me at that point.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily right over. The business just didn't line up with how things work with me, because what people don't know is that every time I went to produce a song, it went back to paying back a part of D12's publishing deal, which was completely ridiculous. So when I tried to go back and fix that, then they didn't understand it because they didn't necessarily understand the business part of it. So they would be mad, and it's like, bro, it's really not fair. I'm just trying to fix it. It's not going to stop anything that you're doing. I just need time to fix that. And maybe I didn't articulate it right. Like, obviously, I don't, it ain't not a nice way to say I'm getting fucked out of some money.
Yeah.
Or, it's not fair. And then that's the only reason I exited. And because of the moves that was being made, it was like, I didn't think that they aligned with the brand. And I was like, man, I don't want to tarnish this thing that we built. So if I remove myself and maybe we can kind of regroup, we just never regrouped. And, but then obviously I was producing for everybody. I knew everybody, anybody that was anybody. And so I was able to continuously show and prove there. But like I said, it was a long time. So I took my break. I take breaks because it's not as important as my sanity. And I realized how unhappy I was. When Proof passed away, I was diagnosed with AFib. I never had high blood pressure. Then it was like I had this high blood pressure. And I was like, what the hell is happening? But it was depression. So I'm in standing depression. I'm like functioning depression. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
and during that time, I was working with artists like Guilty Simpson, J Electronica, my daughter, Tierra. I was like, I didn't realize how important I was in her life because I met her when she was 11 and I didn't have any children. You know what I mean? Her father was killed and I was working with her. This amazing artist, like this kid and there's like this girl. And I'm like, so I'm working with her and it's like, this is more fun than everything else that I'm doing. Like, right. So I'm throwing myself into it and we were bonding, but I didn't know how important our relationship was. And then when her father passed away, I was like, you'll never not have a dad, you know? And I took that role. And then when I look back at it now, I wish I'd have spent more time in her growth, in her life, right? But now it's just an unbreakable bond and, you know, you grow. And so during that time after Proof, like I just took a lot of time to just, I went through a lot of stuff, man, depression. And then I'm kind of like falling into a role of like, I got to be a grown up. I can't let her see me with a whole bunch of women. I can't let her do like, you know what I mean? Like I was trying to figure out how to be a, you know, a good role model as a person and as a father, because I don't look at it like that's anything other than my daughter.
Yeah. So you had this early life near-death experience.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you've been around people who've, you know, really significant artists who've passed away, but your own near-death experience, but then the passing of Proof, how has that made you look at life and how you spend your time?
I'll tell you the biggest thing that I'm a very quick to cut people off kind of person because I like my peace. Mm-hmm. But I'm very big on if you say you love somebody and how you treat them, if you're not capable of considering them, you don't really love them. Because love makes you consider people. You consider that person when you do something. Yeah, it's for you. You do things that's for you. How you speak to them. How you treat them. So when people say things that they don't mean, you know how they like, oh, when you're mad, you say things you don't mean. I try not to do that. Because me and Proof at that time, the last time I saw him, we had gotten into a fight. And it was not, probably he wasn't in his right mind at the time. And it was scaring me because I was like, man, I didn't know who he was at the time when we got into that fight. And that was the last interaction I had with him. So for like a couple of years of just being depressed, I didn't know that I was like, man, we was at odds. And I was really mad at him. And I was more mad at him because this is the only person in the group that knew the business the way I knew it. Like I learned it because of him. I learned it because that was the thing that I learned that shit, man. Like, so we would have conversations when he was here and was like, yo, let's just tour. We don't need security. Let's just go. We go do a tour and we do this and we cut it down and we just tour for like a year and just we was like doing rock band shit. It's like, fuck hotels. We'll just stay at a hotel every 3 days. And yada, yada, you know what I mean? Yeah. We was really like, we knew then what the game was becoming. He ended up getting into the independent world. I was literally following. I wasn't trying to go get a major. I actually had 3 offers on the table at the time for solo records. I never put a solo record out because I felt like I shouldn't do it. But I had always had solo music. I was a producer. Every time I made a song, the reason I was able to make those songs is because I made those songs for me first. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, I would make the song for me first and then sell it to somebody. That's why I had a hook on it already. That's why I was like, and I already had a deal on the table. I had 3. And I didn't take any of them. And it was like, yo, I'm doing this deal with this and this. And I was like, for real? But I was trying to do the group thing with Kon Artis. So then I was trying to get him to come to the studio. And he was living life. He got married and he had a family and he had to, you know what I mean? So it was like, I'm waiting. And I always put myself on the back burner and I kept doing it. So he was the only person that knew the business like I do it and did it and had the same work ethic that I had. I live in a studio before I went home. So then I built a studio in my house. But I still live in that room pretty much, right? And I did that for a long time. So when he was gone, everybody made it about Eminem losing a friend. That's all they talked about. So who properly grieved when fans made it about him losing his best friend? Right? Nobody properly grieved. And when I realized that, I was like, oh shit, this is happening. I have to actually do it myself. I can't. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, this shouldn't be going this way, but that's the way the world is. So go do it yourself. Yeah. And when that loss happened, I removed myself from the bad business for me. I started doing things for myself more so. And that became a problem because people don't have a problem with your boundaries. They just have a problem with how you're going to treat them. Like when you make a boundary and you create a boundary, it's like, oh, he's changing. But it's really just stopping them from being able to continue to treat you the same way that they're treating you. Technically, you know? Yeah. And so once I started doing that, then I became a problem. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't. I was just like, yo, this is not working right. The brand is like it's being tarnished. And that's not a slight to the guys. That's just the truth of how things went. But losing that loss was significant. And recently, last week was his the anniversary of his passing, which I always for the last 2 years I just tried to ignore that day. I was just like, I'm only gonna celebrate his birthday. I'm not even gonna talk about it. I don't post. I try not to post. I don't even get online that day because I know everybody else will. A handful of people will remember that time. Mostly it's the fans because they just true like that, and you love them. I love that they remember, you know. But people in your life may not. So they might have what they want from you. They might want you to be who they want you to be. And they don't even say, how are you? Are you okay today?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that becomes a thing where it's like, damn, that hurts. You get what I mean? Because it's like, you getting mad at me for whatever you getting mad at me for, but not even asking me, am I okay? But you love me.
Yeah.
So when he passed away, I made it my business to make sure that I say what I mean. And I try not to say anything that's not, I'm not perfect. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to lie and say I'm not perfect just to make it an excuse for me saying something that I shouldn't say.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally, man.
So I things that I said that I would never get to take back. Things that he said that he never get to take back. So I learned a valuable lesson there. And obviously, yeah, there could be trauma or whatever, but it's also a lesson. Man, treat people the best you can while they're here. He passed away, DMX passed away a couple days before the proof anniversary of his death. I have songs that I just did with DMX. I never got to work with him, and I was able to work with him. Me and Swizz are really cool, and he sent me a video of a song that he was working on and killing the verse. It's incredible. Like, and I'm like, yo, this is crazy. Like, I'm happy. And I'm like, then he passes away.
Yeah.
So it was a tough week. I was remodeling my whole house last week because I had to keep myself from being depressed. Yeah. And I saw Swizz, I saw him post this video, and I was crying because I know how he feels. I know exactly how he feels. Everybody can say what they know about X and all of these things, but he knows him. That was his friend.
Yeah.
That was his brother. Like, we can all say that about Proof. So when fans be like, oh, it's good that you're there for him. And it's like, listen, lady, I'm going through the same exact shit. You just minimize it, but I'm not looking for you to be anything because I don't look at you for that. Mm-hmm. But it's just kind of foul that you actually making it about something else. So nobody actually properly grieves when these things happen because fans are one part of it. Family is different. Family loses a family member. Fans lose an artist. Some of those fans may feel like they lost a family member. But the truth of the fact and the matter is, like, you really are not the family. Mm. Right?
Yeah.
And some people like X is like Proof, a lot like they was a lot alike. Everybody felt like they knew that person personally. DMX prayed for everybody he ever met. He prayed for us more than we prayed for him. And when he was going through his addiction, I know for a fact there was people that was trying to help him. But that's just not always the way it get to go.
Yeah.
Right?
So I want to ask you a couple questions as we're getting close to the end here. Like, dude, you've shared so much, man, and I really, really appreciate it. I really want to make sure that we're hitting on something that's super important to me.
Mm-hmm.
Is who are you today, man? Because we've talked a lot about your journey, but who are you today?
I am still a little afraid of. I still have fears that I'm working through, but I'm facing them. I am still learning to not be so mad about the things that I didn't do, the loves that I didn't create, the children that I didn't get to inspire. I'm still trying to inspire kids and younger versions of me.
Mm-hmm.
I want to even more now because I know it's another me out there. Right? So right now, I'm just trying to be the best person. I want God to be okay with me.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't care about nothing else. I want God to be happy with them. I want my desires to align with what God wants for me.
Okay. Well, with that and with what you just said, what can you tell us about two things? One, I want to hear about your mentoring because I know like mentoring is important to you. And then two, I want to hear about what's going on for you career-wise today. But let's start with the mentoring.
That is just a random thing. Whenever it comes, I don't sign up for things. I don't do a lot of that. Like, especially now with COVID, it's like hard to. Mm-hmm. Before it was just like the studio. We always have younger talent around. Mm-hmm. And I felt like that was always my school. Mm-hmm. Any studio I'm in, if there's somebody there that's not in a place that they trying to get to a place, I'm going to give you every piece of game that I got. Some people are teachers. I have a lot of mentors. My father, my uncle, my uncles, my man Jason Wilson is like a mentor, but like a friend, like a big brother. He works with a lot of kids, and the way when I see him do it, it's like, man, that takes a lot. He works with young boys, and it's like important that we have it because I can tell a kid how to make music, or I can tell him how to be a good man, right? It's more valuable for me to tell him. He gonna figure out how to make music. Like if you really want it, you gonna study that. Most people don't study how to be a man. They don't study it. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, man.
So that's easier to like do. I have more mentor. Eric Roberson. I look to him. I always ask him. I just randomly bug him. I just recently started talking a lot to. I talked to David Banner for like a couple hours. It was the most random conversation, but the best conversation I had had in a long time. And I look at him and he's like an OG to me. And when I say that, I don't mean it. I mean it like he's very knowledgeable about who he is and who he wants to be. And those things, when you really putting out the right energy, it just comes to you. So right now, I think I'm in school. That's kind of how I feel, you know?
Yeah. All right. So tell us about your career today. What about you today?
I am just now. I feel like I treat this game how I want to treat it. I don't work for the music industry. It has to work for me. So what I'm doing right now is like every year I choose what I want to do. I say what I want to focus on. This year I'm focusing on production. I haven't focused on production in a long time. And I'm going to do it quietly without a whole bunch of people like knowing everything that I'm doing. But I'm working on 5 or 6 different artists, 3 of which are major artists, 2 are independent. And then I'm working with just anybody, but then I'm working on myself. Like I have 2 albums that I'm one is called Comic Con, which is based around, I took all of the experiences of my life and put it into each character that I like Loki, I got a song called Incredible.
Mm.
I put a video out for it. And I do everything weird. I put the video out for this project probably a year, 2 years ago. And I only did one verse and a hook. And I did one verse and a hook. And people have no idea that it's attached to a whole project. I was just like, I'm not ready to put it out yet. I just treat it how I want to treat it. I understand that doesn't work for everybody, but I can do what the fuck I want.
Yeah.
I'm tired of the music industry telling you what the protocol is. Protocol is what the artists say it is. And with the passing of X, rest in peace, the passing of Black Rob, I think that we need to start having more care. I think hip hop culture is very disrespectful to the people that came before them.
Mm.
And that has to change. It's the most disrespect. We disrespect our artists more than anything. A rock band that didn't sell shit can tour forever because their fans actually have an appreciation for them. We the only ones that have this time limit where it's like, let's not do this. Oh, we don't care about it. It's not hot no more. That's not the way it should be. Because that exact same artist, you might have to go back to try to sample that person's song for a song that you got later. Why would you not have a network of that? It's the most disrespectful thing when I see some of the stuff that's happening with the artists today. Like, man, we got to figure out a better way to be. So I don't let the music industry, I don't work for the music industry. It works for me. It does what I want it to do when I feel like doing it. And if I don't feel like it, so what? I don't really care about what's happening. I don't care about what artist is hot. I don't care about none of that. I'm still me and I'm going to do whatever I want to do. It works for me. And when people hear it, it's like you can tell that in the music. It works. Why does it work? Because I'm good at what I do. Most people don't know how to articulate it, but when you deal with it in your daily, everyday, that has been my story. Like my talent exceeds my confidence, right? And so that's been my thing. It's like, wow, man, he's so talented. Why ain't he more popular? It's because I'm not confident enough to be talking to people all the time. Like, so I had to get comfortable. And now I'm gonna be a wealthy old man. I'm gonna be more wealthy old than I ever was young. And I did okay as a young guy. But I'm gonna be more wealthy even then because you know your past when you accept who you are and you accept it and you like, all right, just face that thing. I look at myself in the mirror. Look at yourself in the mirror. I do this all the time. Look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself you love yourself. Tell you, I love you, I love you, I love you until tears fall from your eyes. I do it whenever I feel like shit. And it works.
Yeah. But also, man, the thing that stands out for me goes right back to the beginning of our conversation. You found that. Like you became more comfortable in yourself. You became more comfortable in your process. You took your space.
Yeah. And I'm claiming it a lot more. But this year, like I just was like, I want to be a producer this year. I'm gonna produce for people. Yeah.
Dude.
And, you know, myself. So I'm included in that.
Man, no, I love this. This has been such a cool conversation. All right, 2 final questions for you as we are closing off. The first is, you know, and you hinted at this earlier on, you're a huge comic book fan and comic book movie fan, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, so top 3 comic book characters.
Hulk, Iron Man, The Flash. Those are my top 3.
All right. Final question for you. You know, when you're thinking about, like, you've just had such a story.
I'm lying. Blue Marvel is number 1. Blue Marvel. And it's a reason. It's just, listen, they need to dig deep into that story. They really need to dig deep into that story. So I would say Blue Marvel, Hulk, Flash.
Okay.
Yeah.
Iron Man gets the boot.
Iron Man gets the boot.
3. Okay. Listen, man, you've had such a storied career. I could talk to you for hours.
Mm-hmm.
Like, on just a personal front, like, I just love how, like, open you are and just like, dude, you really, like, I feel deeply inspired, especially when you said find something that loves you back. Like, that to me is such a standout moment.
Yeah.
But like, I could talk to you all day around personal stuff, business stuff, professional stuff. But if you're thinking the people who listen to this podcast are a mix of people from the straight up corporate business world, but also people from the music world, it's kind of like a meeting ground. Mm-hmm. Anything you want to share with people, like anything that you'd say from like a space of like what you want people to be thinking about as we're kind of trudging through the rest of this year?
If you're afraid to share information, if you're a person that's great in finance and you love music, if you listen to Pink Floyd while you're working, then that love for music goes across the board. Loving Pink Floyd is loving Outkast. Loving Outkast is loving Ciroc, the MC. Loving that, like, in the same way that you share that information, a person in finance should always share information with a person in a whole different business, right? Because if you're scared to share information, you're not really good at what you do. And when people tell you that that's not the way it's done, oh, well, you can't do that because then how are you going to make money? I give away more beats than I actually sell. And that's how I'm able to sell beats. Because I'm going to give you something incredible and people will look for incredible and they're willing to pay for it. I'm not afraid to share the knowledge because I don't care how you do what I taught you. You're going to do it differently than me. It don't matter, right? There's no snowflake that falls from the sky that's the same. Not one. And humans are the same way, right? When people tell you that's not the way that it's done, just tell them, this is my motto. My motto is, we are all leaving Earth in a box. There's no way that I'm going to live in one.
Whew. Dude.
Right? You are. There's no way you're going to make me live in this box you want me to. It's not the way it's done. That's your box. You leaving Earth in that one. I'm not living in it.
Oh, yeah, man.
I'm not.
Well, what an incredible note to end our interview on. So, man, thank you so much. Everyone, please check out Denaun online. Check out his projects, support.
Yeah. I'm also on Twitch. I am Denaun on Twitch. I'm about to start a Twitch show. I have a podcast called You Said What, which is down right now because my partner doesn't respect COVID. So he's like out in the streets. So I was like, I got to put it on pause. And then, I'm working on, I have an album called Reflection coming out. And then I have an album called Comic Con that's coming out. So,
heck yeah.
Yep.
Awesome, man. All right. Well, thank you so much, Denaun. This was
hey, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I'm glad my camera stayed on and for the whole time because it usually overheats.
We were too cool, man. Yeah. All right. That's excellent. Thank you so much. And everybody, we'll see you in the outro. Dave, drop the beat. Wow. There are very few conversations that I have that leave me speechless, and this was one of them. We covered a ton of stuff, and the vulnerability of Denaun and just that real honesty, it struck me. So, man, thank you so much for being on the show. Not just do I think this is a cool episode, it actually personally mattered to me, so thank you. I got to ask everyone to really consider, when you're in this time where is our house empty? Do we not like the person across the bed from us? Do we not like the person looking in the mirror? What's the work you're doing to come out of this time in our world, this pandemic, better than when we entered it? It's a compelling question, and we still have time to do that work, so why not start today? So as we're closing off, I want to remind everyone that we're produced by Patrick McKechnie, edited by Dave Larson, and designed by Tammy Levy. So everyone, stay safe, stay solid, and keep in mind that today is the only day you've got. We'll see you next time on One Step Beyond.
One